It's the conspiracy theory that keeps on giving. Yes, Kamala Harris is already preemptively blaming the Biden Harris loss in the 2020 election on dun 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 Russian interference. Yes, they're cracking that old chestnut again because if 2016 wasn't enough, they're ready to give it back in 2020. This is just getting absolutely insane. But it's actually not insane. And I'll get to some of the reasons why they keep going to the Russia treasure chest, so to say, and why they are already looking to blame a 2020 loss on Russian interference. So, Kamala Harris, this is on the Washington Examiner. Kamala Harris, Russian interference could cost us the election. That's right. They're already laying the groundwork to blame another loss and another Trump victory on Russian interference. So, Senator Kamala Harris, the running mate to Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden, said foreign interference by Russia could cost the pair the 2020 election. No surprise. I mean, for 4 years, 3 years, I guess, really, we had to hear Russian collusion, just nonstop, Russian interference in our election. And of course, they put a 2.5 year investigation with the Mueller probe on it. And I have never seen a more dejected, more humiliated man than Robert Mueller when he had to sit there and give his findings of the Mueller report that clearly stated there was no collusion. But of course, they had to drag out that investigation so that Democrats could win back the House in the midterm elections. Because if they had just made it like a 2-month investigation, which is probably the most it ever should have been. Actually, it really shouldn't have been at all because it was basically entirely founded on corruption. But if they had to go ahead and do that investigation, they probably knew within 2 months that there was no Russian collusion. And they drug it on because they wanted to make sure that in order to stymie Trump's presidency, they had to he couldn't have both the House and the Senate. Even though for the first 2 years, the House and Senate both both sat on their hands while they had full control, which is, another reason why Republicans are just so damn spineless. But if at least under Trump, we're starting to see some Republicans actually step up and take the mantle a little bit. So here's Kamala Harris. We have what happened in 2016, which is foreign interference. Okay. So that also happened in 2012, 2008, 2004, 2000, 1996, 1992. Do I need to keep going? We have had foreign countries try to meddle in our elections since the beginning of American elections. This is not anything new, but it's the same. They want you to think it's the same thing as the whole left wing Antifa narrative that, there were secret police and unmarked vehicles snatching people off the streets. Law enforcement has been using unmarked vehicles since the dawn of law enforcement. They want you to think these things are new because they think that they can just feed it to you and you won't question it. Because so many people don't, especially on the left, because the left is the death of critical thinking. So they want us to think that this 2016 was something new and different. We've had foreign interference in our elections, or at least attempted foreign interference in our elections for forever. And the most they could come up with was like a handful of Russian bot farms that paid like a couple $1,000 for Facebook ads that reached like 2,000 people. That did not sway the election. So, which is foreign interference, Harris said during a CNN interview aired Sunday. They won't drop the narrative, even though it's been proven false. It's been proven that it was insignificant, especially on the Russian side. They won't drop the narrative because they're like a dog with a bone. And it doesn't matter if you just lace that bone with cyanide. They will keep tugging at it and pulling it until they keel over dead. So we have a president who is trying to convince the American people not to believe in the integrity of our election system and compromise their belief compromise their belief that their vote might actually count. These things are all at play. Okay. We have a president who is trying to convince the American people not to believe in the integrity of our election. That is because you guys have destroyed the integrity of our election. It's very common sense that there is no chain of custody in a universal mail-in ballot. I mean, it is countless how many things could go wrong, how many nefarious acts can be at play. We even actually have I did a video just a couple weeks. I don't think many people watched it, which is surprising. Really, you guys should all watch that video about a Democrat operative talked for years about how with mail-in balloting, fraud was the modus operandi. It was the rule, not the exception, and how he was a top operator in committing that fraud. And so I think President Trump needs to grant that whoever that anonymous person is, they need to find out more information about it. They need to grant him immunity, and then they need to interrogate him and get all the information about this, because it is not Trump that is trying to undermine the integrity of the election. It is the Democrats who at the 11th hour think that they can change the entire balloting process. We are not prepared to change, and over the course of, what is it, since March or whatever, that all of a sudden we're going to change our entire ballot process to this mail-in system where first of all, it's all going to be handled by the USPS, which their union actually endorsed Biden. So now you're going to have a bunch of Trump supporters turning over their mail-in ballots to people who work for a union that actively endorse the candidate that they are opposing. That right there should be automatic disqualification of the entire mail-in ballot system. But they're just sending out ballots to everybody. There's been reports of people getting ballots that don't belong to them. There's been reports of, we've already seen in Paterson, New Jersey, we've had four officials indicted for mail-in balloting fraud. How we've seen reports of people going to old folks' homes and filling out their ballots for them, going around door to door collecting ballots, saying, "Oh, we'll turn this in for you." We just saw another news article. Shoot, I should have had it pulled up. I think I had it somewhere. Let's see. Yeah, huge pile. Surveillance videos captures a rental truck dumping bags of mail in California parking lot. Now, we don't need to read this whole story, but you can see how, wonder if there are any mail-in ballots there. We had that guy who was talking about how there could be that, how sometimes mailmen were actually operatives for the Democrats in committing this mail-in balloting fraud. This is all out there. And so she wants to blame Trump for undermining the electoral process when they change that process at the 11th hour in the same year as the election, have no answers for how they're going to secure it. They just brush it off as oh, that's not real. It's not going to happen. Yeah, it's real. We don't have evidence. We have proof. We have proof. You're sitting here holding a smoking gun saying you didn't just fire it. So, of course, this is what they do. This is the Alinskyite Democrat tactics of accuse your opposition of doing precisely what you're doing. Basically, anything the Democrats accuse Donald Trump of, we need to just assume, oh, so that's your game, Democrats. That's what you're doing, Democrats. If they're accusing Trump of it, they're doing it themselves. That has become the rule. So earlier last year, the U.S. intelligence community warned China, Russia, and Iran are seeking to influence the 2020 election. Of course, I'm sure there's plenty of countries that are seeking to influence the 2020 election, but those are our three enemies. So of course, or I guess maybe not adversaries. Those are our three most adversarial nations. So of course, they're going to do what they can. They're going to seek to influence the 2020 election because it directly impacts their nations. Welcome to Common Sense. That assessment, released in August by Bill Evanina, who leads the National Counterintelligence and Security Center, said Russia is using a range of measures to primarily denigrate Biden. And so, let's see, the same report said China wants President Trump to lose re-election and that the Iran regime is seeking to undermine his presidency. Now, why is Kamala Harris not talking about China and Iran? Because they're actually going against Trump, and they do not have the same set of standards. They are only worried about people who are going against Biden. And it's probably pretty clear why Russia is seeking to denigrate Biden. It's because Russia's largest regional adversary is the Ukraine, which Biden has very dirty dealings in, which is probably another one of the reasons why Kamala Harris, actually, China too, he has dirty dealings in China too. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into this real quick. So one of the reasons, it's kind of a twofold approach and why they're going after Russia so hard and not anybody else. One is because it takes all of the attention off of China, but it also hurts Ukraine. It also takes light off of Ukraine. So it's taking the spotlight off of Ukraine and China. Because Joe Biden, we already know about Hunter Biden and the Burisma Holdings, how he got $50,000 a month when he in an energy company where he had no energy experience, and he was pretty clear that he was using his father's name while his father was vice president to get this job. Well, what were they getting in return from Hunter Biden and his connection to his father? We even have Joe Biden live on TV talking about how he got a Ukrainian prosecutor fired who was looking in to the Burisma Holdings scandal. He's sitting there bragging about it. He's talking about, well, I got to get on a plane and, what did he say? Something about if you don't fire that prosecutor, we're taking that aid money off the table. Well, we now know also that aid money that he was threatening to take off the table if they don't fire the prosecutor looking into his son was essentially going to be stolen by the oligarchs in Ukraine, and that they knew that before sending the aid to Ukraine. They knew that it was just going to be money and they were going to get a kickback for it. And in the meantime, we also have Hunter Biden flying on Air Force Two with Joe Biden into China and then coming out with a $1.5 billion equity deal from what amounts to the Chinese National Bank. I mean, and it's not just Biden with China, though. I mean, we have Senator Dianne Feinstein has dirty dealings with China. I believe the Pelosi's are up to their gills in Chinese money with their, $100 million, $200 million net worth. So the Democrats have been selling America out to China for forever now, and they want more than anything to keep our eyes on Russia so that we do not see what is going on in China and what they have done in China and how they have sold America out to a communist party. In fact, in 2019, Biden, he goes even, come on, man, the Chinese aren't bad folks. Really, the Chinese are not bad folks. They run concentration camps. They run organ harvesting operations. When COVID hit, they disappeared any whistleblowers, killing them. And then when it was spreading out through Wuhan, they would go and literally weld the doors shut so that people couldn't get out and would just die alone in their apartments because they were literally welded in there like a cage. There's a reason. But he also said that they're not bad folks and that they're not our competitors. Joe Biden does not view them as our competitors because they're his business partners. Same with Ukraine. And keeping the focus on Russia keeping the spotlight on Russia keeps all the focus off of China and Ukraine, which we're going to find out Joe Biden has been in some seriously corrupt dealings. And Kamala Harris is just running cover for him. It's the narrative is dead. Everybody knows that the whole Russian collusion thing is absolute nonsense. And I mean, Russia's just not all that powerful. Well, we're told that Putin is like the worst dictator in the world. But why? I mean, I'm not saying I support Putin or like Putin, but they've asked us to accept this premise without really telling us why we should believe it. I don't really know much about Putin. I don't really know much about Russia. I mean, I know they're not good actors and that they are adversarial towards America. But why are they villain number one? We don't really get the reasons about that other than Hillary fucking Clinton lost the election in 2016. That seems to be the only reason why Putin is persona non grata, enemy of the state, enemy number one. And, Xi Jinping and, all the oligarchs in Ukraine they get a pass, even though Ukraine was likely the most corrupt country in the world. And maybe that's why the Democrats want to do business with them. Because the Democrats are up there. They are up there. They're up there in the most corrupt party in the world, on the planet. So early this year, U.S. intelligence community warned. So where was I? China wants President Trump to lose, of course, and China is absolutely our biggest competitor. And then, let's also talk about how nobody at the DNC blamed China for the coronavirus. Nobody blamed them. They got a free pass. In fact, the WHO investigation didn't even go to Wuhan when they were trying to look for the roots of the virus. Didn't even go to Wuhan. It's a complicated and devious plot, and you just pull the threads, but it's hard to see the big picture. It's hard to see what they really have planned, but there's something there. Well, I mean, other than just like these big money dealings, coming out with 1.5 billion. Oh, but of course he didn't have money to pay for his, or Hunter Biden I'm talking about, didn't have money to pay child support for the stripper he knocked up. Oh, but then he gets a $500,000 tax lien on him, and that's cleared up in 6 days. Although the Trump administration has raised a lot of concerns about China, Harris says she believes Russia will be at the forefront of any meddling efforts in 2020. She does not believe that. She wants you to believe that. That's the game. She doesn't believe it. She wants you to. We're not suckers, though. She goes, I am clear that Russia interfered in the election of the president of the United States in 2016. Yeah? Well, Mueller, who spent 2.5 years investigating it, isn't clear on that. I serve on the Senate Intelligence Committee. We have published detailed reports about exactly what we believe happened. You don't believe it. You just want us to believe it. Again. Gonna be a broken record on that point. That's a line you need to pull. They don't believe this stuff. They just want you to. And I believe, and I do believe that there will be foreign interference in the 2020 election and that Russia will be at the front of the line. No, China will be at the front of the line. We're not at any like real tensions with Russia. Nothing like legitimate. Sure, we have sort of an adversarial nature. But we've got actual military exercises going on in the South China Sea. We had the Chinese embassy in Houston shut down. I believe that was it, or was that the one where they were burning all kinds of documents? We had one Chinese embassy shut down and another one where they started burning all these documents, which we caught on like satellite footage, which was really, really sketch. We don't have all this stuff going on with Russia. We don't have China trying to spy. We don't have Chinese spies. Or Russian, actually, let me rephrase that. We don't have Russian spies getting arrested in our academic system. We have Chinese spies getting arrested in our academic system. Yet they want to pretend that none of this is happening, that China is our friend. A communist party that runs concentration camps, slave camps. I mean, basically everything that we buy from China is made with slave labor. Yet they want to go and march around America, burning America to the ground because we had slavery hundreds of years ago. But they got no problem with slavery that happens today. They don't talk about Libya, where there are literally open slave markets where you can buy a black man for $200 and he's your slave. They don't talk about that because they don't care about that. China is their business partner. China is the model. They probably have deals worked out with the Chinese government that once they're done selling us out to the Chinese government, they're going to live like kings, or I guess emperors. All right. Asked if it could cost her and Biden the White House, Harris said, theoretically, of course. Already setting the excuses. And they're already prepared for the mail-in balloting thing to fail, because I don't even know that they can. I think that the Trump wave is going to be so huge that even the mail-in balloting scam is not going to be enough to overcome the silent majority. In fact, I wanted to make a video earlier, Lake Lanier. I didn't make the video because it was really more of a personal thing. Lake Lanier had a Trump. This is in Georgia, so I actually grew up going to Lake Lanier every Sunday as a kid. We'd go to church in the morning, and then a group of families from the church and the neighborhood that we grew up in, we'd take our boats up to Lake Lanier, and we had our own little cove that we go to. It was one of the best memories from my childhood. That's why I'm a huge lake person, and I love boats and everything. It's just I had that growing up, and that was very fond memories. So I grew up going to Lake Lanier every Sunday during the summertime, and Lake Lanier just had a Trump flotilla, and there was supposed to be about 700 boats expected, which would have been huge. Instead, they ended up with almost 4,000. 4,000 boats. All with Trump flags and pro-America. So if you, and then you see Biden does a presser, like a Q&A, and there's like 6 people in the audience. Literally. There was a video that I saw the other day of Trump doing a Q&A thing. 6 people showed up to his town hall. Trump's got 4,000 boats on a lake. So, I mean, they put out all these polls saying that Trump is ahead, or that Biden is ahead, or Trump's narrowing the gap. There was no gap. Trump is probably up in the polls like 80-20. Would not surprise me if the polls were accurate and if the polls were real. Maybe 75-25 if I'm being generous to Biden. Old man River there. Harris also said that Trump sowing doubts about the integrity of the U.S. election system is at play, as well as the Voting Rights Act of 1965, a part of which was struck down by the Supreme Court in 2013. That was who is it? Somebody versus Holder. They were essentially saying that the Voting Rights Act of 1965 said that there were certain states, and it was like a list of states that engaged in voter suppression, during the Civil Rights era or before the Civil Rights era, and that those states, before they changed any part of their electoral process, had to get approved by the federal government. Ironically, two of the states that were on that list were California and New York, mail-in ballot states. So I'm wondering if she should really be decrying this whole part of the Voting Rights Act being struck down, because that would mean her state of California and New York would have had to run this whole universal mail-in voting thing by the federal government. And I think that would have been a solid no. So, glass houses, Kamala Harris. So that decision outraged Democrats, who said the court essentially gutted a key provision of the law that was meant to correct decades of discriminatory treatment of black voters. Yes, in 1965. They're saying that same thing has happened. It was mostly southern states, of course, because the South is always targeted. And they'll never let the South outgrow their history. Which, fine. If they don't want to do that, we should not let the Democrats outgrow their racist history. Honestly, because right now they might even be more racist than ever with all this anti-racism propaganda. This anti-racism that they're putting out right now is all rooted in racism. So they are still the party of racism. They began as the party of racism, they proceeded as the party of racism, and they are today the party of racism. In 2013, dozens of states passed laws that were designed to suppress the black vote. Okay, what did they pass? To suppress students from voting, to suppress our indigenous people from voting. So we have a classic voter suppression, she said. Notice how they never say what they do. They never speak in specifics. You notice I sit here and I give specifics. I talk about the dealings with Burisma in Ukraine. I talk about the dealings of Hunter Biden, the $1.5 billion coming out of China. I talk about the spies that are being found in our academic system, the Chinese spies. I get into the specifics. You'll notice the Democrats never do. They throw out accusations that are broad, and they never get into the specifics because they know that if they did, they would be found out as utter and complete lies. All right, so that's the story. Anyways, yeah. Kamala Harris here already prepping to blame their loss on Russia, and we really shouldn't be surprised. Democrats don't ever take responsibility for anything. Just ask Nancy Pelosi and her hairstylist. So, anyways, guys, that's the video. Go ahead and hit the like button if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Share this video if you haven't already. And also, if you haven't already, follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Parler at Ram Thorburn. And if you haven't already contributed to the channel, which you probably haven't, there are links to my Subscribe Star, Patreon, and PayPal down in the description below. Anyways, guys, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.